Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about equipment in Hearts of Iron 4 that players do not build and why they do not build them. You will discover some of your favorite equipment in this that you probably roleplay and you build yourself. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but this video is about to ruin your day. We'll start from the bottom. Trust me, we're only going to go up from here, and this is the raw bottom. The fuel silo. Your capacity at the start of the game is 364,000. If you build a fuel silo, it will increase the capacity by 100k, which is a significant amount compared to the minimum threshold. I will admit, if you're ever in a situation where you do not have direct access to fuel, banking maybe a year's worth of fuel is going to be worthwhile. So now we're going to build fuel silos. One of the main reasons people don't buy fuel silos is one, that they're just a little bit expensive as well. It's like the same cost, almost the same cost as a military factory, but you get so much more with a military factory, hence the reason people don't tend to buy them. Here's another downside to it. It takes up one of the production slots, one of the building slots for that state. Every slot can either be a civvy or a mill, which is going to get way more bang for your buck. But to be fair, I have used this before, and I remember doing an oil Germany playthrough challenge a long time ago. And if you do get enough fuel capacity, you can invade the entirety of the Soviet Union just by bank fuel silos. Making one or two of these probably will give you an extra 30, 35%, maybe even 40% extra capacity, which will probably go a long way in those situations if you forget to import oil. But it's just too easy to get oil in Hearts of Iron 4. And in that circumstance, there's not much reason to make a fuel silo. Honestly, hand on heart, should you be making fuel silos? Don't make them. It's a waste of time. Please don't do that. Next up, mine laying. I'll admit, when we first got this new feature, a lot of us did use it quite frequently. But when we look at the stats of it and what it actually does, the bonuses aren't that great. Evasion penalty, naval speed, and accident chance. What it basically does is it just favors the person who's dropped the mines. And when you reduce the overall speed, it reduces their spotting capacity. So in a kind of inadvertent way, if you want like a hidden navy, you'll mine a certain region, and that region will give you control because they're less likely to be able to spot you due to them having to move at significantly lower speeds. The problem with mine laying is you have to add it as an individual module onto your ship. I mean, it is fairly cheap overall. It's only 90 production cost, which is the same as a torpedo tube. And I suppose when they're mine laying, they're very vulnerable to get hit as well. You can only mine lay when you're at war anyway. I suppose as a secondary too, it's also mine sweeping. I can say, hand on heart, I have never put mine sweeping on one of these ships. Where is it? Here is it. Mine sweeping gear. Yeah, here we go. Oh, it's very low production cost for this. So the only real downside to this, because this is practically free anyway, is it eats up one of the module slots for your destroyers or cruisers. What are you saying, Dave? You do still mine, and the reason you mine is it gives naval supremacy. Yeah, I'll admit, naval supremacy is the biggest benefit of mine laying. So for instance, if you knew you were going to do a naval invasion from northwest Germany into, like, say, the center of England, you'd mine lay these two specific regions. If you look really closely, it says naval supremacy. Our mine coverage is being increased, our overall naval supremacy, by 8%. And to be hand on heart, guys, that's the only real one benefit of mines. It allows you to project naval supremacy. But there's one other thing as well. You can also do aerial mine laying. This is one of these things that comes so late game that most players don't even know it even exists. And there we go, mine laying. Boom, and it has the same abilities. I suppose if you wanted to in this situation, you could do some goofy stuff like try and make a large frame that mine lays. You can actually do that. That is really OP now I think about it. So you potentially could mine the middle of the Pacific or the Atlantic from Europe. But the truth behind it is, open oceans reduce the chance of mines getting hit by 50%. You are better off dropping mines in like fjords and archipelagos because those have already got like speed reductions overall. So it looks like you need a significant amount of these planes to actually start mine laying. And they mine so much significantly less than from ships. And that's the reason why very few players use this strategy, because one, the technology comes too late. Two, it's just not very effective anyway. What do I think about mining? It's okay. Off ships. Early game, cheesing it for naval supremacy. Everything else is big. Next up, we have rocket sites. It's another one of those ones that's cursed with you only really get access to it late game, so why would you ever use that? So here we go. Experimental rockets, and then the first one is guided missiles. Now these start off horrendously bad and then get an ever so tiny amount better. Let's make some rocket sites. Here we go. I've never even seen this icon unlocked before. So let's look at the production cost. 6,400. It's about the same price as a military factory. So the way rocket sites work is they're kind of like airports, but they automatically generate rockets, and you use them like like air wings. It's not the best example of this because we're so unbelievably close. This is like the perfect way of doing it. If you want to fire V2 rockets from France into England, which historically happened, you only get like 40% efficiency. So the beauty of this is it doesn't eat up into your military factories or your civilian production when you built the rocket site. And let's see the damage it's actually done. So it's a strategic bombing, basically. There you go. It damaged one infrastructure. Oh, there they go. Rocket. Rockets away, chaps. I never even knew there was an animation for this. They don't even explode either. They just hit the ground and then disappear. As you upgrade rockets, you get access to the V2 rocket and then finally like a modern cruise missile, which has ridiculous range. It is actually doing significant damage. I think they may have buffed this because when I last used this, it didn't do much damage. But if you look at the range on this, can you see the circle for the range? It's ridiculous. Another downside with this is they kind of behave like planes where other planes can shoot them down. So like they're like a bomber in the air, which significantly reduces their effectiveness. What's the damage like? Okay. Oh, okay. We're doing some good damage now. Okay. All right. Seems better than I thought. With the unbelievably long range you get with the V3 rockets, I suppose in that situation, it is kind of going to be effective. And it is, I guess, affecting the war support. No, it's not. But honestly, it's basically a really crap, expensive late game logistical strike. Apart from the V3, the very final technology, all the other ones just are rubbish. So the V2 is 640 kilometers in range. The V3 is 11k. So the only one that's actually worth your time is the final one. The other ones are rubbish. Oh, I've also been told you can launch nukes with this as well. But I've never managed to get this to work as well. It says you need to have one strategic bomber in range. And I thought a rocket class is a strategic bomber. Maybe this will get reworked in sometime in the future. Maybe we'll get nuclear strikes that are kind of effective and worthwhile and worth your time. But overall, they are unbelievably poo. Don't make them. They just suck. Next up, we have super heavy battleships. Another one that you cannot get access to early game, which is thankful for that. But overall, should you? There are so many better ship options than super heavy battleships. If you want a ship that basically take a little bit damage in a battle and then spend 6 months in a dock repairing, this is the baby you want to go with. I don't recommend these at all. Listen, I get that these existed in the war. I get that the Japanese made them. But overall, it's just an expensive battleship. And battleships are notoriously bad for taking damage and spending months on end in ports getting repaired. Now it also has an incoming torpedo critical chance increase, meaning this baby will take extra damage when it hits by a torpedo. I will argue that because this ship has so much HP, on the second line, if you're using it as like a damage sponge with carriers behind it, that could be an effective strategy. But once again, I'll say it again, you'll be in a situation where if this ship takes damage, it'll be knocked out for 6 months. Hand on heart, just make regular battleships. There's no reason to make Yamatos and super heavies, even though they do look pretty. I'll admit that. Since we're still talking about super heavies, we're going to talk about super heavy tanks. Now you've got the beauty of customizing it with the new tank designer. So first of all, very expensive. Goes without saying. This is a very big boy. Also has a big attack bonus against forts, which is something nice to have. However, when you attack mountains with this, you basically do no damage. So be aware the terrain has to be perfect. If you're attacking anything that isn't plains and desert, this thing won't move. I guess when you design one of these, you want to focus on an armament that's going to do decent damage. Also, you don't need to focus on armor because it already starts with a ridiculous amount of armor. I suppose that's some other costs you don't have to worry too much about. If you can afford it, you've already kind of won the war anyway. So like, what's the point? The one big advantage of this tank that I feel like we shouldn't ignore, it has 100% hardness. And because it's a super heavy too, you're adding a very large amount of hardness to the division. In this case, it gives you 10% hardness. You can make half of this division super heavy tanks. It comes out at 50%. But 360 super heavy tanks, it just isn't worth it. The only time I think this could be worthwhile is if you go in for like a supermarine strategy where you're adding just a single one of them on to add armor to the division. That would be worthwhile. Instead of a heavy tank, you do a super heavy tank. Look at those penalties that a super heavy tank experiences too. I guess I just hate this, to be fair, because breaking difficult terrain types in Hoi4 is the bane of your existence. Hence the reason why most YouTubers just make 7.2s every single game. Yay! Super heavy tanks. I think they're kind of practical in a way. I like the idea of making a space marine with them. But overall, everything else, they're just expensive. They're late game. You don't get access to them until you've already won. So what's the point? Boo. Okay, this is one where I feel like this might be an oversight by Paradox. But the next one is rockets for tanks. So So regular rockets are okay. If you get all the upgrades for them, if I was to replace this regular artillery with its support rocket artillery, we gain an additional 18 soft attack, which is worthwhile. And if you stack that with a regular support artillery, we're doing a whopping 36 extra soft attack. Double stacking soft attack, infantry needs soft attack. Now let's just talk about tank rockets. And I don't think these work the way they should work. And I'll admit, maybe this is an oversight by Paradox. Medium armaments, improved rocket launcher, giving you soft attack, losing breakthrough, has no hard attack, has no piercing, loses reliability, and is expensive. It's as expensive as the howitzer. I would admit these probably will be more effective if they were designated as artillery. However, howitzer has the better stats. So what's the point? Yeah, it's for the memes. Someone in the chat just said it's for the memes. I think it is for the memes, really. They're just rubbish. Maybe they'll get buffed. I don't know. All right, next up, jet engines. Jets are worth a note in this. They come so unbelievably late game that most of the time the war's already technically over already anyway. For the most part, they've got great stats. They give maximum speed and give an insane amount of thrust. I'm not going to diss jet engines, okay? But what I am going to diss is what comes with jet engines. GT, the gas turbine engine. So this is in most modern tanks, and it gives the maximum amount of speed for tanks. Here comes the however. It hurts the over... Oh, actually... Oh, hang on. This reliability of 10% is less than it used to be. Has this been changed? Are we actually going to find that the gas turbine engine is actually worth our time now? It's basically an upgrade of the gasoline engine. Instead of 15% extra speed, it gains you 25% extra speed. So 10% can't be ignored. This is almost a 6 kilometer per hour super heavy. Next up, gas turbine on the light tank. Speed, speed, speed. I am speed. I know there's going to be a bunch of strategies and people yelling at me saying, why don't you make the super fast light tank? I suppose I'll do that one day. Overall, though, the gas turbine engine is not bad. I suppose having extra speed on tanks is going to be useful late game. I don't deny that. But overall, it comes so late game. It's something that most people forget about and probably don't even take advantage of. But there you go. It's nice to know. Okay, this is a feature in the game that most players have probably forgotten about. Cold acclimatization factor and warm acclimatization factor. This was added in Together for Victory such a long time ago. So whenever a division is operating in an area that has high temperature or low temperature, they'll get acclimatization to that area. It used to be something you could glitch quite easily because you could move your troops to the middle of the Sahara. So we'll find an example here of someone really warm. Really warm, and it's the Congo. And here it is very warm, very hot indeed. You can see that this division is acclimatized towards cold by 68%. He's now getting hot acclimatization, which you can see now he's getting an overall reduction to his attrition. So if you had full hot acclimatization, you'd reduce your attrition by 10% in hot climates, and you'd also increase your organization regain by a small amount too. And there you go, he's 100% maxed out now. Heat attrition has been reduced by half, and his organization regain has been reduced by half. These stats are so unbelievably low, it's just so unbelievably pointless. There you go, now you know the reason why never to actually do this. Moving to the end now, rocket interceptions and rocket engines. When you unlock the technology, not only do you gain the rocket launchers, but you also get rocket engines too, which have very severe penalties to range, but overall they have fantastic speed. But technically, in a way, when it comes down to raw stats, they're actually better than jets. However, they cost a lot of tungsten and they severely penalize the amount of range that you get. The idea behind it is this is specifically a bombing interceptor due to its extreme speed, and that's it. The most advanced rocket engine is only a tiny little bit better on speed compared to the jet engine. So why would I ever do that? You'd make it for the memes and then you'd not make it for any other reasons. That's the honest truth. Overall, rocket engines are just pure bad. And last and definitely not least, someone in my chat did suggest this one, so this wasn't one of my ideas. The floating harbor. You get it on the landing craft too. Here you go. You can produce it. It produces a bit like a convoy. You can only assign 5 naval dockyards at a time. Interesting. Now you need to plan a naval invasion order with a floating harbor. So it's specifically a different button. And he activates his naval invasion. Here we go. Boom. He arrived, and then you can see, look, floating harbor. Wow. I've never actually seen that graphic in game before. The idea behind it is you basically have supply for longer. That's my understanding. I thought it automatically built a port, but it doesn't. So I do still have low supply. Do you know what? I actually don't even know what this does. I don't know. My understanding is when you land, it automatically built a port, but it doesn't, and it's run out, so it's disappeared. I'm going to take a guess. It gives supply for a longer duration than it did previously. It's supposed to give you 10 supply. It didn't seem to give me any supply at all. The tooltip is really bad too. It doesn't really tell you what it's doing. Let's just do another one. Landing. You can see it's built it, so it's actually acknowledged that that's what's happened. But I can't see anything in the stats to indicate what it's doing. Oh, here we go. So it artificially makes a supply depot at that location that disbands. And it has a capacity of 15 supply. And then when it disappears, my org drops. So basically what it's doing, amphibious, it creates extra supply out of grace factor. You basically getting supply from nowhere. I never really played with this. And for the most part, whenever I do naval invasions now, I play really safe. I make sure that I land in a location that I know will give me optimal supply or enough time to grab supply in some way, shape, and form. I thought it built a port, but I guess I'm wrong. So instead of needing to get supply within 10 days, you get 30 days, which I suppose is something. I never build these. It's kind of nice that they're in the game though, but would I ever make them ever again? Now I know what they do. Nope. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want another video on my second channel, check it out right here. This is it. Give it a go. Give it a click. Yeah.